Hello, everyone. I'm India, the product specialist for demonstrated success, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar on analyzing New Hampshire SAS data. We're happy to have you with us today. I'd like to introduce Ann Mordecai, our Director of Math and Assessments, and your presenter today. I'm here to answer your questions as Ann moves through the presentation. Before we start, I'd like to draw your attention to the control panel so you know how to ask questions and get handouts in our polls. First, everyone on the webinar is on mute to avoid interrupting noise. But if you have a question, please type it in and I will stop Ann and she will answer your question. Also, there are handouts attached to the handout section at the bottom of the control panel. At the end of the webinar, if you want to stay on and ask any final questions, we will unmute and chat. Also, the webinar is recorded and is posted on our Demonstrated Success resource website. Without further ado, Ann, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, thanks, India. Good afternoon, everybody. How is everybody doing? I know you can't answer me, but I'm going to pretend you all said I'm doing great. We have quite a few people logged on today, which is really good. And this, I think, is a really useful piece of information that we're going to talk about, analyzing your 2019 SAS results, which you can also use for your 2018 and 2017 back to the SBAC, because it's all very similar and very useful to inform instruction. So I'm going to start. Let's see. India already did introductions. I'm going to talk about the structure of the SAS results because it's a little different than normal assessment results. Some tools that we can use to review the results, protocols to look at data, and some examples of where we could start. So I have a poll that I'm going to send out about what is your role. Yeah, I'm going to launch it. There we go. I just want to know who's on. And I've submitted it, so I think everybody can see it now. India, can you see that? Yes?
I can.
Okay, good. I hope everybody else can. We've got, mostly 100% building administrators right now. Anybody else? Interesting. It's still 100% building, so I guess everybody's an administrator. Give it another second, see if anybody else is trying to work on that. Nope. It looks like it is, we've got a few SAU administrators, a couple classroom teachers, and mostly administrators. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much. Back to the webinar. So that's the agenda and poll. So the first thing I want to do is one of the handouts that you have, and some people who have come to our workshops or who have been to a webinar before with us have done this already. But there is a document on the handouts called Login to Demonstrated Success Site. And you can use that to get any of the documents from today. And if you log on, which I'll go back again, you log on and you have to follow those directions because there's a code you have to enter and you have to sign up and enter your email. And once you get to this section, you can scroll down and find the webinar section. And this is Analyze Your 2019 NH SAS Data. And if you click on that, you'll see a list of documents that are available to you. So you don't have to do that right now, but after the webinar, you could do that. And the PowerPoint is out here also. So you can download the PowerPoint. But there are some documents attached. And when we get to them, I will say there's a document attached. You can use that right now. So the goals of today, I want you all to understand the SAS data and learn about different platforms on which you can view the data and determine the best way that you can do it to reach your goals. Looking at the data, the results of last year's data sometimes seems a little cumbersome, and very often people say, well, that was 6 months ago. But if you look at data for the past 3 years, your scores may go up and down, but the detail of them will stay fairly consistent. If your students are struggling with fractions, For 3 years, they may be struggling with fractions, even if you have a high class and a low class. So the teachers, as teachers, we really need to look at ourselves and say, what do I need to learn? What do I need to change in order to change the fraction results? So that's how we're really going to look at the data. The structure of the SAS results, whether you're looking at it from Performance Plus or from the ORS in the portal. And if I'm using any of these terms and you're going, what is she talking about? Please ask a question. Because we all use these acronyms, ORS, SAS. And if I use one that isn't familiar, please ask. So we've got the structure. We have subjects, ELA, math, and science. I'm mostly going to be talking about ELA and math today. Reporting categories, which I will explain. Clusters, I'll explain. And standards. We know the standards for math and ELA are the New Hampshire College and Career Ready standards, which are actually the Common Core standards, and the science are the Next Gen Science standards. So subjects for ELA are grades 3 through 8, math also 3 through 8, and science is 5, 8, and 11. We also have the SAT assessment for the 11th graders, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I don't have that in the webinar for today. Like I just said, we've got the Common Core standards for English, math, and the Next Gen standards. Reporting categories align to some of the more detail in the standards. For reading 3 through 8, there's reading informational text, reading literature, and then these three, speaking and listening, writing and language. And that's true for grades 3 through 8. They're all the same. Math is a little different. Grades 3 through 5 have reporting categories, 6 through 8 have reporting categories, and actually 6 through 8, they're different, a little bit different for each grade. And science categories are different. This document is on our website, so you can download it and see, but you can also look at the standards to determine what the reporting categories are for the most part. In general, the reporting categories relate to the larger headings or the domains that are in the Common Core standards of the New Hampshire College and Career Ready standards. So for instance, that's a reporting category. Reading literature, reading informational text, those are reporting categories. For math, these domains, these larger chunks, we used to call them strands, are the reporting categories in general. Operations and algebraic thinking, numbers in base 10. The numbers in base 10 is combined with fractions for the SAS reporting. So that gets a little confusing. You have to break out the detail. But in general, the reporting categories are very similar or almost exactly the same as the domains in the standards. Clusters are the next level down. So if you look here, here's the domain, reading literature. Cluster is the key details, and it's a cluster of standards. So for 3rd grade, key details will include these standards. Craft and structure for 3rd grade will include these standards. For 4th grade, it's the same reporting category, the same cluster, but it has 3 different standards and 3 different standards for craft and structure. So if you're looking at your reporting category scores, you can determine which standards the scores refer to. Same with math. Here's the overall domain or reporting category. The clusters, again, are clusters of standards, like this. That is the whole piece on the structure. So does anybody have any questions on that? Doesn't look like so far anybody has any questions. So please ask questions. If you have them, other people do, I can promise you that. So the scores are, and the levels are the same. They come out like this: subjects, reporting category, clusters, and standards. The subject scores are the same as they have always been, back to as far as I can remember, back to GLEs, and before that, it's level 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, where level 4s are above whatever it is, and it's above standard, above proficiency, whatever we want to call it, but it's above. and the level 1 is the lowest, so it's below. And there are 4 categories, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There are cut scores associated with ELA and math and science for those scores. And that document is also on our website. You can download that and see what the cut scores are. And sometimes you want to see, how many of your students scored a level 3? Well, level 3 is good, but how many of them were actually right on the cusp? And that you really might want to pay attention to those students. Or how many of the level 2s were actually close to level 3s? How many level 4s were close to level 3? So these cut scores can be important. In the ORS, what is ORS? Online reporting system, which is in the portal, the New Hampshire portal, this is what the subject scores will look like. You get these, everybody know who these people are? You get the name, the score, and what level that score is. So you would get a report that looked like this. The plus or minus number is the confidence index, and if the number is huge, there's a bigger range of, well, if the number is small, there's more confidence that the number is correct, that student really is at that, tomorrow would score the same or close to it. Tomorrow, this one might score plus or minus 10 points. That's what that number there means with the plus or minus. So that's the subject score. For the reporting categories, they're not in 4 levels, they're in 3 levels. Reporting categories are either on or above, at or approaching, below or below. And I've asked a couple times, what is the difference between on and at? And nobody can tell me. So you just have to remember that above is above and approaching is the middle range. So for that, you might get something that looks like this. This is an ORS report. So Janice Joplin, for reading literary text, both of these are ELA, but these are the reporting categories. She scored above. This is the middle range, and this is below. This is warning. So this student, Mikey Dolans, was it Mickey Dolans? Now I can't remember. Anybody remember? In reading literary text, he's lower than reading informational text. So that is something you might want to look at for this student. If you had a performance plus report like this, you could have a student score a level, this would be true in an ORS report too, but you could have a student score a level 3 overall in math or a level 2 overall in math. And this student is below for measurement and data and at or near for numbers and operations and fractions, and at or near for operations and algebraic thinking. So it looks like this student is lower than this student, except that this one scored a level 2. This can happen, but what that means is that this at or near, this student was actually a little closer to the top than this student on the middle range, and same here. So sometimes the results are going to look a little weird with the three scores for the reporting categories, and I think the next slide shows you how that happens. So if I have 50 questions for each student, and we know it's adaptable, so not every student will get the same number of questions, and it may not be 50, but let's say that we have 50 questions, and I get some percentage of them right. I'm going to end up in one of these categories. I'm going to end up with, depending on my points, I'll end up in one of these categories. And as an assessment developer, I can be pretty certain if student A answered, a high percentage of questions, she's a level 4, or a level 3, or a level 2, or a level 1. But now, when I'm looking at a subset of questions, so now instead of 50 questions, I've only got 15 questions, I can't be quite as sure how strong they are. If they're super high, I know they're super strong. If they're super low, I know they really need help. But if they're in the middle and I only had 15 questions, it's kind of hard to tell. So if I score a high at or above, at or approaching, or on or approaching, I could be a level 3, but I could also score a low approaching and be a level 2 or a level 1. So that is the part that makes it a little bit confusing with the 3 reporting levels. And that should be so confusing that either I'm totally confusing everybody, or nobody's asking questions because they don't want to ask questions. So please ask a question, because that is very confusing. So the reporting categories are in 3. Now, the clusters are the level below that, and they are back to the 4 levels, but it's not level 1, 2, 3, and 4 the way we're used to seeing it for subjects. It's based on the number of points a student got. And I just have to go to the next slide to see what that is. Yeah, that'll show it. But so if a student had, oops, didn't mean to do that, sorry. Let's say every student, I've got 2 students, and they both are getting a score for cluster A in math. If they both had 10 questions and one of them got 9 correct, he would score in this range and he would be a blue. If the other one got 3 correct, he'd have a 30% and he'd be here. So that's how that gets put into the report. The problem comes when you're looking at students. If I have 2 points worth of questions and I get them both right, I end up here. And let's say I got 4 questions, but I got 2 right. So you and I both got 2 questions right. I just happen to have an opportunity to answer 4. I would only get a 50%, but we both got 2 right. That can't make sense to everybody, but I'm going to go forward until somebody asks a question, because I will show you an example of that. This is how that might look. So this is a cluster, reading informational text, and it's grade 4. Reading informational text, grade 4. Key details and ideas. This student scored 9 out of 10 points. This one only got 4 points, but it was 4 out of 5, so it's still high. So this student got 3 points, but it was 3 out of 6, so it's only 50%. This student answered 1 more question correctly, but is in the blue. So you have to be very careful when you're looking at the answers with by student on the summative assessment. This assessment isn't really geared towards looking at student level results. You can do it, but it isn't geared that way. Another way you can look at the clusters is in the ORS, and the ORS will actually give you the standard level results. Reading literary text, key details, and here are the standards for this grade, and I can't remember what grade it is, but for this grade. And this column means this student or the class or the grade, whichever level you're looking at, scored about the same as the rest of the test, the rest of the people in your group. This, they scored a little better than the rest of the group. This, there wasn't enough data. In other words, probably there weren't enough questions for this particular standard. This is a standard that might need work, but that's such a tiny view. So if teachers start saying, oh, I need to work on this standard and I need to work on that standard, they're getting into a very small area to change. Whereas if you look at the whole reporting category and say, okay, this is the one I might need to work on, this reporting category, or perhaps this one because this was lower. I'm going to work on this whole reporting category, not just the standard, because these are all very connected. So when you're looking at the data, the whole purpose is to figure out where you're going to change your instruction or what's been going well in your instruction. I think I'm gonna skip that part for now. So this is the document that will show you the reporting categories, and you have that on the demonstrated success site, so you can download that. For reading, it's reading informational text, reading literature, speaking and listening, and writing and language. These are the 2 main ones, reading informational text and literature. So here's reading I'm going to skip this part because it doesn't matter so much. All right, now I'm going to go to standards. Oop. And again, you can only get standards on the ORS. You can't get the standard report from P+. And these scores are compared to your group as a whole. So if you're looking at your school or your class, this particular standard was answered as well as any other question on the test. This was not. This was a tougher standard. Students had trouble with this. And this will show you what was proficient and what wasn't. So this could be a real strong, like you could have a plus sign here, and it could be real strong, but it could still not be proficient, even though it was your school's strongest point. It doesn't meet proficiency. So this report, you have to look at both columns to determine where you want to work. And you want to, again, choose a cluster. As a teacher, you want to choose a cluster to address that whole year. It sounds tiny, and it sounds like, oops, I didn't mean to click that. It sounds like a very small thing to change, but this changing one cluster is a lot. If there's a unit or 2 units that work on one cluster, that's a lot of work to change 2 units on top of everything else the teachers are doing.
And
yes,
when you mentioned a list of resources on the website, one of our attendees wants to know, how do you access that list? Do you have to be a member to access it?
Well, if you look at the handouts, one of the handouts is called Login to Demonstrated Success. And if you follow those instructions, that will get you onto our site, and then you'd be a member. So that would be a member. It shows you the code you need to enter. Everybody in the state actually has access. You just have to go through the process to get in. So please write back if that doesn't work.
Yes, I'll be watching to see if you need clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. So I will continue. Let's see, where are we? Again, this is just a summary. Overall, ELA, math, and science are the 4 levels. You know, above proficient, proficient, below, and substantially below is what we used to call it. Reporting categories, you get on or above, at approaching, or below. Look, why does that keep happening? Okay. And then the clusters, and forget the reporting categories, P+, I'm not going to talk about that, are in these 4 levels. So you get the number of points versus the number of points that you were given. Since this test is adaptable, everybody has their own number of points for each cluster. And in the ORS, it gives you the key to what each of these mean. Okay, so there we are. That's a whole bunch of stuff about what the data looks like and how to review it. I mean, how to look at how it's scored. So now I want to go to what are some of the tools. There are a whole bunch of different ways to look at student results. Today, we're just going to talk a little bit about the ORS and a little bit about Performance Plus. You can also look at iPlatform, which is a new site that you can get to through the DOE website. So if you go to the New Hampshire DOE, you will see iPlatform there, and it's pretty prominent. You can't really miss it. And it's kind of cool. You can search different schools' budgets and where they fall and how they score based on the number of budgets or the area and the state. It's an interesting tool. I get lost in it sometimes and just keep looking and digging. But I4C is also another place where you can look at data. It's a little more technically based. So if you're a technical person, you could get data from there. I think you have to be a superintendent to get the data, but you can access it from your superintendent. And then the DOE website has reports that you can download, aggregate type reports that you can download. Like I said, mostly we're going to talk about the ORS, which is on the portal, and Performance Plus. Oh, I have a poll, but I think I don't have that one right now. So the ORS system, the online reporting system, this you get to from, I wish I could ask everybody and have everybody say, yes, I know where that is, but I can't really do that. So the ORS is part of the New Hampshire portal. When you log into the nh.portal.airas.org, which is the site teachers log into to administer the test, this is where you get the summative results. You get the summative and all the other results, but this is the place you get the summative in the online reporting system, or the ORS. And again, this is the reporting structure that you'll get. You can get all the way down to standards on the ORS. And you'll start like this. When you first log in, if you have access to a school, you will get this. If you have access to a district, you'll have more than this, but if it's just a school, you will get something like this if it's an elementary school. Number of students, percent proficient. And to go further, you click on one. I'm going to go back again. So if I want to go into a little more detail, I can click on grade 4 math right there, except here. This will give me the detail of all the reporting categories. So reading literary text, reading informational text, here's my average score. Oh my goodness, very sensitive today. The percent of students in each category. And I think I didn't print the key here, did I? So I can't really tell what the key is. I think the 4% was the high and the 53 was the low on this, but oh no, here it is, I'm sorry. 4 is the low, even better. And on or above is the blue, so that's good. So you can see this report. You can also get into this report, which I showed you before. So this actually shows you the scale score for each. Level 3, level 4 tells you the levels for each subject, and this is math, as you can see. And then each of the reporting categories, how each student scored on each of the reporting categories. This is how you get to it. When you log on to the portal and you click on the first page, test administration, you'll come to this, and it's in the ORS, this square right here. You choose score reports, and that's where you get this. We want to look at math for 4th grade. You click on that, and up comes this little window. Math, you can change here. So I want to look at math, 4th grade. I just want to look at the standards for 4th grade. How did they do on the standards for 4th grade? Oh no, I'm going to change it. I'm sorry. Sorry. Math, changing the grade. I can look at teacher roster. I can look at the teacher, the roster, or a student. I can choose that. And then I can look at subject, reporting category, or standard. Performance, clusters and standard scores in the ORS. Cluster scores are not in the ORS. So you can get a reporting category, but you can't get the next level down. It skips from reporting category right down to standard. And one of the things I like is for teachers to concentrate on their instruction for a reporting category. So this does skip that, but you can still get it from the ORS. You get performance indicators, whether they are high or low or in the middle. And the results are based on the group you're looking at. So you're looking at just your class, just your grade, or your school. That's what the results will be based on. This is the report for standards again. Hopefully you'll get this one because I've showed it so many times. So here's the cluster. Building, here's one, use the 4 operations, build fractions, a cluster of standards. Here's a cluster. This is how your school did or your class did compared to itself. So if you look at this, this is the strongest area. They scored the best here on this standard and the worst here on this standard. And it comes out that this is where this is below proficient and these are all proficient. So you might, if this is the lowest, you might want to work on this cluster, not just this standard, because they are related. Using the ORS is complicated at first, but once you do it 2 or 3 times, it's really easy. And we've had it for 4 years now, so you've probably all used it. There is a user guide, and it is attached to our site. It's called the SBAC ORS user guide, but it's the same. I'm not sure they've even updated it. Now, if you're going to go to Performance Plus, there are some reports that have been pushed to you. Mike Shorts calls them pushed. I like to call them shared. They've been shared with you already. They were created at the state. This is, last year's, but it looks the same. You get folders get pushed to you. So all the grades, if you're a district person or a school building person, you can see all the grades. If you're just third grade, you can see just third grade, but you can see all the grades and third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth if you're a district person. So those are folders, and these are all the choices for folders. There's the all grades, and that's going to have ELA and math, and eventually science. Just third grade, just fourth, just fifth, etc. And the SAT results, you can get them all. These are all pushed to you. These are all created for you by the state and sent to you. These are, once I click on the folder, all grades, these are the reports that I can create. They've been sent to you, so all you have to do is click on them. So all grades will have, all of these will have by building. You can compare IEP and LEP, and you can get a pie chart of results back. And this is, 2017, 16, 15. I think now it's going to be 19, 18, and 17. If you go into one of the folders that's based on the grade, you'll have these 8 reports. One of them is the reporting categories, so you'll get ELA and math reporting categories on this report. Comparatively, they'll compare them to each other. This one will give you the detail for ELA, reporting categories, detail for math, and then you get it by student, so you can get how each student did on each reporting category. And this is more detail, how they did on each cluster, how a student did an ELA on each cluster and a student did a math on each cluster. And like I said before, this assessment was not created to look at student by student results. It's really to look at how the school or the grade level is doing. So looking at student by student results is not that informative, really. You could say, oh, Johnny's not doing well, I better give him another test. I better use some other measure. And the interim assessments or the benchmark assessments are the best thing you can use, but we'll get into that in a minute. The reports look something like this. This is the high level by grade. You've got grade level 3 and all your different schools. This is the highest, level 4, level 3, level 2, and level 1. You can see how each school is doing. Like this school right here, all these level 4s and level 3s together is where this school scored. 82% of their students were proficient. This one, 61% were proficient. This is your district and the state. And then we look at 4th grade math. Level 4, level 3, level 2, level 1 for that school. So we want to look at level 3s and 4s. That's about 60%, 62%. This one down here is down to like 40-something%. We can add these two together. This one is a little lower, higher. Hopefully this is making sense as I go through these. This report, they're all the same. Level 4, there are no level 3s, level 2 and level 1. The comparative reports all look like this. You have the overall and the overall district and the state, so you can compare it to the state. Pie charts look like this. This is the one where you'll get a pie chart for each grade for each subject, so for each year. So here's grade 3 in 2018 first, and then grade 3 in 2017. And you can look and say, this is, the blue is level 4, and the green is level 3. So you can see more than half of the students were level 3 or 4. That's great. You can also add them here. And here I'd say it's about the same, just a little bit more than half are level 3s and 4s. So it didn't change that much. We have 5 fewer students who were level 1. That's a really good thing. So these reports are really nice to look at comparatively back over the years. This is a sample that has been pushed to you of a student report if you want to look student by student. This is where, so here's the overall score right here. The score was this is an SBEC score, level 1, level 3, level 1. Let's look at this level 3 person. Reading, was above. Remember, this is in 3 levels: above standard, at or near for writing, above for speaking and listening, and then these are their math scores. So this is overall score and reporting category. If you have access to P+, I probably should have asked how many people do, but this is a really interesting report that you can look at. If this is comparing the NH SAS grade 4, the ELA, to the 4th grade, how they did in 3rd grade to how they did in 4th grade. So this is SBAC and this is SAS, so it's a little different. I think this is SAS, SBAC, yes. So these students here scored a level 1. The students in this red scored a level 1 in grade 3 on the SAS. These students in this range, hopefully you can see where my cursor is moving. Can you, India, see my cursor wiggling back there?
Yes, I can see your cursor. Some of our attendees did not get all the handouts. Do you mind using your cursor to show where the handouts are one more time?
I don't know if they can see. I don't know if you can see my control panel. Can you see my control panel?
You know what? No, we can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's at the bottom of the control panel. It's right below polls and questions. Right above the chat box, there's a handout box. If you just click on that, if you click on the arrow, the drop down arrow, you'll be able to see the handouts that Anne is covering.
Yep. And if you can't find them, send me an email. I'll have my email address at the end of the PowerPoint, and I will. I'll just email them to you. If you can't figure out how to get access to them or they're not there for some reason, send me an email and I'll send them to you. And
Yeah,
now
we're sorry about that.
what? No, yeah. I thought they're all there, but sometimes who knows what happens with using the system, the GoToWebinar. I see another question that says, since Performance Plus is a paid site, where can the push reports also be found? I hate to tell you, but you can't find them anywhere else. They really are only in Performance Plus. You can get the information on the ORS. It's just not the same detail that you get. I'm sorry. So again, this is level 1, level 2 students, level 3 students, and level 4 students. All of these students, this was on the grade 3 ELA. And then the next year in grade 4, there are no lines for these for some reason, but whatever the number was, so these people may have scored a level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And you want it to go, if you scored a level 1 on the 3rd grade, you want to score a level 1 or actually it would be better to go up to a level 2, which looks like some of these students probably did. But there aren't a lot of students who scored. Here's a whole bunch of high level 4 for grade 3s. You see that? This is level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Quite a few students were high in grade 3, but when you look at the level 4 for 4th grade, there aren't a lot of students who are high. So it looks like some ground was lost here. It's just an interesting report to look at to see how they're going from grade to grade, or you can compare SAS and STAR, SAS and NEWA, NEWA and STAR. You just compare any 2 assessments. I can't remember why we're there. Oh, because on the handouts, I'm going to go back. This is on our website. You can get the handouts. And if you can access the handouts on the webinar, you can also get these protocols to use while you're looking at data. Different data teams will look at different types of data. And this is just very general because the district data teams can look at any data they want to, schools can look at any data they want to, and grade levels can look at any data they want to. But districts might look at school-wide trends or even district-wide trends for subjects, for absenteeism, for graduation, for things like that. Leadership teams might come up with protocol that you would use for accountability. I want I'm a principal and I want to make sure that my grades are turning in some kind of document so that I know that they're looking at data and doing something about the results. I would review the documents just so that they know it's important. I want my teachers to keep looking at data to improve their instruction, and the only way they're going to keep doing it is if I let them know that it's important. Grade level teams might look at their own student data. I would suggest strongly that the fourth grade team looks at the fourth grade results, not the third grade students coming in when we're talking about SAS. They should look at their own results for last year, the year before, and the year before that, not for the third grade students who are coming to them. If they're looking at the third grade results, they're looking at third grade standards, not fourth grade standards. They're looking at the instruction of the third grade teachers, not their own instruction. So each team level looks at different data or the same data. It's different for every school. Not every district has a district data team or a school level leadership team, but most do at this point have grade level or subject level teams that look at data. The two documents that we use are, one is called the short form, that's this one, and one is the protocol, and that's this one, it's longer. It's got all the steps. If you've never followed the steps before, you can do it just by reading word for word how to go through it. And people, as you're looking at the data, you as a leader can read through this bigger document, and teams can write their responses on this document. We do have workshops around the state that are free for everybody about looking at data, and if you look on our website, there will have some dates on there. We just went through one round. We have another one on the 21st that you can still sign up for if you weren't able to get to some of the other ones. There are 5 basic phases. The first phase before you look at the data is to predict what you're going to see. What do you think you're going to see? What do you expect to see? If you're looking at data, you usually know what the data is going to be. You just gave the assessment yesterday, so you know sort of what the data is going to look like. It's got 20 questions, 50 students, whatever. So you don't need a definition of it. But what do you think you're going to see? Then the next phase is to just look at the data. Don't come up with any inferences. Just notice. Everybody scored well on question 5. Everybody scored poorly on question 20. If you're looking at that kind of detail. Next, you do, what do you infer? Why do you think that happened? Why did everyone do so well on question 1 and so poorly on question 30? Come up with ideas. And then what does that mean for your practice? If you're looking at question 1 and everybody did well, that's great. You did a good job. But you need to change something for question 30 because everyone did poorly on that. And the last phase is to reflect on the process. I usually, when I'm doing this with teams, I usually forget to do that phase for some reason. But I also think the real next phase is to come up with a goal. Based on what you looked at, what's your goal? What are you going to change? And here is the document for the goal. Come up with a SMART goal. All the questions related to comparing fractions the students were not able to do. We need to change that so 100% of our students or 90% of our students can answer questions related to comparing fractions. That could be a goal by June or by May or whatever. You can also look at data this way. This is a 3-year document. Somebody would have to create it. You have to download the data from either the SAS or from Performance Plus or from the ORS or Performance Plus. And you can look at third grade. Third grade is this math. Yeah, third grade math. 63% of the students were proficient. 74, that's great. Oh, way down. 39, 57, 59. This is all grade 4. But you can also look at this way. Third grade to fourth grade to fifth grade. How did they do? Fourth grade to fifth grade to sixth grade. How did they do? And this is a really good way to look at data. You can see some trends. Like this grade struggled every year. So the seventh grade should look at that and go, whoops, oh dear, I'm sorry. The seventh grade teachers should be aware of this, that this could be a challenging grade and make adjustments. I'm trying to talk really fast because I know we're getting close to the end. Examples of where to start. So using data in Performance Plus or ORS to inform instruction. There are two different things you want to look at. You want to either inform instruction for individual students, or you want to inform instruction for the grade level or the whole subject. So first, inform instruction for individual students. You can look at how they all did on number and operations based 10 and fractions. If you're in Performance Plus, you can sort by this. You could group the kids into clusters, or not clusters, that's a word for the reporting, but group them into groups, put them into groups, and work on intervention. But like I said, this is not the best assessment for looking at student data. But if that's what you do, then you can. And especially if you take the assessment at the end of April and you get the results by the middle of May, you could look at those results and say, oh, we need to beef this up a little bit because they didn't quite learn it. Or this measurement data, a lot of them were below. We need to work on that before they go up to 6th grade. This is where you've got to be a little careful. So if you look at these two students, this level, the yellow is level 2. So this student answered 1 out of 3 questions, so 33%, so they end up in a level 2. This student answered 1 again, but it's 1 out of 6, so they're at the bottom. The red is the bottom. So does this student know more than this student because they both answered 1 question? So you have to be careful about that. I think there's another example here, yeah. This student answered 2 questions correctly out of 2, 100%. 2 out of 5. They both answered 2 questions, but this one ends up as a level 3. You can't really say that this student knows more unless you gave them some more questions. So this is not the place to use the data for students, I don't think. It's more, the SAS results from the summative are much more useful informing the grade for instruction. Here you can, do we have a better picture of it? Not really. Here you can look at each cluster. Expressions and equations is a cluster of standards. How did they do? Well, blue and green, not so great.
Hey, Ann.
Yes.
So we have a question that says, can these reports be pulled anywhere other than the Performance Plus?
No, these are Performance Plus reports. But if she or he calls me or emails me, I can show her how to get this from the ORS, because I mean it's the same. It's the same detail of information. It's the same information, just different detail. So if she likes these better, they have to come from Performance Plus. But you can get similar results in the ORS, just not the same, but similar. But yes, definitely she can email me and we can talk about it. We can call and talk about it. Okay? Hopefully that helps. This report, though, can really inform. Here's a probability and statistics. Really not so great on that. But is that an important cluster? That's something that you have to tell. And the Performance Plus now will tell you the number of points for each cluster. And the higher the points, the higher the priority. So if this is a low priority and the students didn't do well, I mean, you're concerned, but I wouldn't be too concerned. Expressions and equations, that's kind of important. And they're still low. You might want to work on that. I don't have a clock, so I don't know exactly what time it is, but I think we have about 10 more minutes. So you want to look at this, what went well, what needs work. This went well. This did not go well. So that's what I would work on, is the one that didn't go well, or the one that went well if you want to make it go better. This is the highest one, but it certainly could go higher. If you're looking at the ORS, so this might help answer your question. Here's, again, a cluster. So the Performance Plus is reporting at this level. ORS is reporting at the standard level. So you could find the standard that was the most troublesome and work on that cluster. Have the teachers work on that cluster to improve for next year. Change the units, add some, go to the benchmark assessments and use some questions from there for their end of unit assessments or for work or morning work. This is a document, I think it's out on our website, it's not on the handouts, that tells you the importance for the math. based on the SAS. These are the number of points for each of these clusters. There's one of these for each grade for math and ELA. If all your students got every single question right on this because you worked really hard on this cluster this year, it wouldn't make that much of a difference in the score. If all your students got these correct, it would make a huge difference in your score. So when you're choosing what to work on, not only should it be something that's low that can use some improvement, but it should be something that will give you some bang for your buck. So make sure you look at this document to help you determine which clusters. I feel like I'm giving you so much information that this is going to be hard to follow. So if solve real world problems, mathematical problems involving area, surface area, and volume was the area I want to work on, I need to have my standards in front of me and know what that is. What do those standards look like? So pull out the standards document and find the cluster and look at the standards. Learn as much as you can about the standards. Find questions that match. Go on the internet and find released smarter balance questions, released part questions. Go to the portal and go to the assessment viewing application and find released questions there that you can use. That will help teachers understand what the standards mean. What are the questions going to be? And that's, some people will say that's teaching to the test. But if the test is teaching what you want our students to learn, then teaching to the test is probably a good idea. The benchmark assessment, that's a great place to find questions. Search the internet, Park and SBAC. And Performance Plus has the content library, which has thousands and thousands of questions by standard. They're out there by standard. One way to look at an assessment, this is if you download, I'm going to say this really fast, if you download your data and put it into a spreadsheet, you could look at it like this. And you can do this with the SAS benchmark assessments. They are the best things since sliced bread. So you can look at it like this. These are, I'm going to back that up one. All my students, they're all named John Smith. Their scores on this particular assessment. This is how they answered each question. And this is the percentage of students who answered the question correctly. So for question 10, 100% of my students answered it correctly. For question 8, only 13% answered it correctly. And so it's in order that way. I looked at this one first and go, oh, yay, multiply a 2-digit number by 2-digit number. My kids could do that. I knew they could. We did a good job teaching that. Next. Oh, yay, compare two fractions. They can do that. And they can divide within 100. Of course they can. We knew they could. Then you go over here, and it says only 44% could multiply 2-digit number by 2-digit number. What? Wait. They're 100% here and 44% here. Same thing. Same thing. It's the lowest. So when you're looking at data like this, you're going to go, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's all wrong. But then this actually happened, and it wasn't wrong. We looked and we looked and we looked, and what we found out was that the questions where the students were strong had pictures drawn already. The questions where they were weak, the students had to draw their own pictures to solve the problems, or they didn't draw pictures to solve the problems. So instead of teaching them again to multiply 2 digits by 2 digits, what we had to do was teach them how to solve word problems. All of these were word problems. So that was something we learned by looking at the data in detail. That was very fast at the end. We talked about the structure of the SAS, different tools to look at the reports, and very quickly some protocols you could use to look at data in teams, and some basic ideas of where to start. Look at the data and find some questions that match the area you want to work. Are there any questions? And please, it's almost 4:15. So if you don't have time now to ask questions, or you don't feel like it, if you feel like it's too specific to your grade and you don't want to, your school, and you don't want to ask a question now, please send me an email or call me. This is my email address, and I will respond to that. So please ask some questions. Thank you so much for attending. And if you have some questions, we can hang on a few minutes and I will unmute you. So there's a little way to actually raise your hand in there. Or if you're just hanging around for a little while, I will unmute you. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, doesn't look like we have any questions. Looks like that is the end of our webinar. Thank you everyone for attending. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.